Welcome to DCS in the Normandy map, and today I'll be flying the mighty Mi-8 helicopter. Now I've been flying the Huey actually for the last 2 months or so in DCS, which also was the first helicopter I've ever flown in DCS, and with it I've flown a full campaign with it as well, which I really enjoyed. Now last week I picked up the Mi-8 sort of as an impulse buy, with no real intention to fly it anytime soon, until I did a quick test flight with it last week just to see what it would be like to be flying a Russian helicopter, and I was actually really impressed. So I decided to start learning to fly and operate it. Actually a process that I really enjoy doing. So yeah, I'm very much in the learning and practicing phase. And today I'll be practicing takeoffs and landings. As you can see, we are on the Normandy map, which is actually inspired by the Mi-8 tutorials by VS Terminus. These tutorials are pretty much the go-to videos to learn about flying and operating the Mi-8. I'll add a link to those in the description. So a lot of the things that I've learned over the last couple of days are based on the excellent tutorial videos by VS Terminus. Now in some of his flights he also used the Normandy map, and yeah, I actually think there's something really fitting about operating the Mi-8 out of these small improvised airstrips. And yeah, it's a map that I've not been using for a long time, and it's actually a really nice map as well, so it's a good opportunity to use it again. So the plan today is to do a full startup from cold and dark, and then taxi towards the runway, do some ground taxiing, some air taxiing, hover taxiing actually, practice some takeoffs and landings, do some rolling takeoffs and landings. Guess we could do a touch and go, do a standard takeoff from a hover, landing takeoff in and out of a confined area, and try to do that with and without the autopilot. And then at the end do a full shutdown. So yeah, let's start. So if you're not familiar with the Mi-8, as I was a week ago, it is operated by a crew of 3. Got the main pilot or the commander, I think it's called, sitting on the left hand side. We have a flight engineer sitting in the middle, and a co-pilot slash navigator and radio controller sitting on the right hand side. I will be switching through all these seats to get the helicopter up and running. So first we need to check a couple of things here on the main pilot side. We need to make sure that the rotor brake is off. Check my parking brake set, and that the throttle is all the way to the left, set to idle. Then we move to the flight engineer's side, and as you can see from here we've got full visibility and access to all the overhead panels, and there's a lot going on. And it looks quite intimidating, but it's actually not too bad. So first step is to get some power. So we'll turn on the batteries, the inverters. Then we enable the circuit breakers. Now I've got various banks. These banks are for the weapons, which we won't be using today, so we can leave those off. And these banks we do need, so we can switch those on. Apart from this row, this is to do with the anti-icing system, which we don't need today, nor do we need the wiper, so we're gonna leave those off and just turn on those two. Then we're gonna enable the fire extinguishing system. Open the fuel shut-off valves. Turn on the fuel pumps. Then we can start the APU, so I can set this switch to start, press the start button, and if we now go outside, you can see some nice flames coming out of the exhaust. So here we can monitor the exhaust gas temperature and the pressure. So officially we were supposed to wait 1 minute before turning on the engines, but we'll skip that for now. So we can turn on the generator. I guess we can also turn on the anti-collision lights and the navigation lights this way. So then we're ready to start the engines. Now the idea is that you will start the engine on the downwind side first to avoid it ingesting exhaust fumes from the upwind engine if there is any wind. But we don't have any wind today, so we can start either engine. So let's do the right engine first, move the switch to start, press the starter button, and then release the engine block for that engine. And if we go to the panel on the main pilot side, we can monitor the rotor RPM, sorry, the engine RPM. So a quick introduction about the instrument panel. So we've got the radar altimeter here, which is in meters. You can actually turn it on now because it takes a little while to warm up. And when it's on, we get a light and oil signal. We've got the main rotor RPM. We've got the altitude in meters and airspeed in kilometers per hour. It takes a while to get used to that. We've got navigation here. We've got a drift indicator, forward, backwards, left or right. Vertical speed indicator. The attitude indicator obviously. And the turn indicator. So we can now start engine number 2, the one on the left rather. Again, press the start button, hold it for a few seconds, then remove the engine block. Again, monitor the engine RPM. So there's the radar altimeter. It's now online. We can set a low threshold of about a couple of meters. Just wait for the engine RPM to increase here. Then do a roll up the throttle all the way to the max. Because what that does is it will give us enough RPM that when we bring the generators online, by enabling the rectifiers and then the generators, they actually provide power because it needs 80% of RPM. So then we can, let's move over to the flight engineer seats. We can turn off the generator, the APU, turn off the APU, set this back to the center, and let's set this back to the center if we want. And now it's a matter of bringing the rest of the systems online and set everything up. So we'll do that from left to right. Add some backlighting to the instrumentation. This all we don't need. We can turn on the fan if we want, because why not? It's quite cute. The avionics on the left hand side and the audio warning system. And when you turn it on and you don't hear anything, then all the main systems are set up correctly. So that's good. We'll do the same thing on the co-pilot side. Turn on the Doppler system, radio, avionics, also in this fan. This is all fine for now. We can set this to flash. And go to the panel for the co-pilots. Make sure that the attitude indicator is not engaged. And check the fuel. There's a fuel indicator here. Set it to total, got lots of fuel. Go back to the main pilot panel and do the same here with the attitude indicator. Also got a pedestal here. Mainly with the autopilot controls. For now we're going to leave the autopilot off, and later on during flight we're going to turn it back on. So let's close the window. And that's everything set up. Don't think I've forgotten anything. So let's take it into a hover first. So that involves moving the cyclic back and right, and also applying the right pedal, which is opposite of what I was used to in the Huey. So with the autopilot off, let's try and take it into a hover. Just raising the collective and trying to cancel out any movements. With the autopilot system off, I found that it's quite easy to end up in a pilot-induced oscillation, as you can see. Try to make only very slight movements on the cyclic to get rid of that. And there's a left drift that's very prevalent in the Mi-8. Let's have a quick look outside. So it's quite tricky with the autopilot off to stay static in one position. And this is with no wind even. So. Alright, let's turn the nose towards the taxiway. You see the amount of movement that's creating that. Let's set it down. Then let's ground taxi towards the runway. Let's release park and brake. Cyclic a little bit forwards and use the pedals to control the direction. No. And turn on taxi lights. We're sitting fairly low to the ground, and it always looks that you're going much faster than you actually are. So you can see an outside view. Let's try not to go too fast. So we'll stop at the corner here. City parking brake. So again we're going to take it into a hover. And then we'll air taxi to the runway. Or hover taxi rather. Try to cancel out any movements. And then move forwards. So I've got a drift indicator here, indicating that we're moving forward now. But not left or right, so that's good. So let's point the nose down the runway. And then we'll set our heading indicator to match the runway heading, be a useful reference. So we're gonna do a takeoff from hover position. When we look at the engine RPM, so the power setting is about 91% or so. I'm gonna leave that as it is. I'm gonna move the cyclic forwards. Build up some speed to about 100 kilometers per hour, just you can see over here. Try to keep it pointing down the runway, and then we can take it into the air. Try to climb at about 120 kilometers per hour or so. The ball centered. And then we turn crosswinds and downwinds. And we don't have to go very high. Roll out on downwind. There's our runway. So for our first landing we're going to do a rolling landing, so I'm going to make sure that the parking brake is off. Keep the ball centered, keep the speed up. As you can see there's a little village over there with a church. So once we're behind the church we can turn base and final. That will give us some room for our approach. Got another airfield over there. So we're almost in the church. And then we can turn base and final. We can start descending a little bit. So there's our runway. And we'll aim for about 100 knots or so. Not too slow. I'm not really aiming for a touchdown zone as such. The stopping distance is very short, but I guess we can actually do a touch and go. try and control the speed with my cyclic and the rate of descent with the collective. And then do a slight flare. Touchdown and increase speed again. So set the power to about 91% and then 100 kilometers per hour. Oh, back in the air. So we're gonna turn left again. So next we're going to fly to that little village. There's a small area with a white fence which creates a confined space where we can try to hover and set it down. So for that I want my parking brake on again, so I'm going to turn it on. So this is all still with autopilot off. So I'm gonna try and do a hover in that confined area with autopilot off. And then turn the autopilot on at some point. So what I always find tricky to learn when flying new helicopters is the switch over point between lowering the collective for slowing down and raising the collective again to avoid entering the vertical ring state. And I haven't really fully mastered that in the Mi-8, so we'll see how it goes this attempt. But yeah, this is basically a very heavy Huey. I still have to get used to all the intricacies. So actually look for that field over there, but I'm a bit too high. If I try to land from this position here, it will be much too steep. That will definitely increase the chance of entering a vertical ring state, so we won't do that. So do a short circuit. We can get a view of that field, so it's over there. And now we're in a much better position. To enter our hover. So as you can see, it's cordoned off by a fence. We've got some trees to the left that we need to avoid. Let's see if we can hover in this confined space without getting into a pilot-induced oscillation too much. It's very tricky not to overdo the inputs on a cyclic, because as soon as you do like this, the movements will only increase, and it's quite tricky to then get it stable again. But this is going better than the attempts that I've done before. So it looks like we're learning. See if we can do a view from outside quickly. As soon as you do this, you lose control. So let's actually enable the autopilot. So that's for the pitch and the roll axis. And that dampens the inputs. And almost straight away it's much easier to hold position. So let's go outside again. It's definitely a big help. So let's set it down. So what we then also can do is turn on the autopilot for the yaw axis. So now I need to keep my feet off the pedals. And then the autopilot will keep the nose in the current direction. And if I want, I can make a small change to that correction via a button on my joystick. So we now do a vertical takeoff. Again, I need to control pitch and the roll, but the autopilot is helping me with that. So immediately we are back in a stable hover. Now we can take off vertically. We now move over to the church. There's a pavement over there that we can also attempt to hover over. Again, avoid trying to end up in a vertical ring state. Not go too far left. So I've got some traffic down the road as well. Again, with the autopilot fully on, it is quite easy to control. Stay away from the wall. Some traffic. Nice. Also like the church in the mirror. So let's go back up. Gonna turn off the autopilot for the heading. So, feedback on the pedals. Accelerate. And then we go back to the airstrip and do one final landing, a regular one. Try not to go too fast. See if we can set it down on one of the pads that are available. I think there are some down this taxiway. Yeah. Let's pick one of those. So let's gradually descend, slow down, and avoid ending up in a vertical ring set. So let's pick the one on the left. Switch over point, starts raising the collective again. See some structure on the left hand side that we need to avoid. Because it's a crane of some sort. Maybe some stairs for the maintenance. So again, we can take it into a hover here. And set it down. Right, that wasn't too bad. It's quite nice practice to do every now and again. So next is doing the shutdown. So let me bring up Kneeboard. I've downloaded some files. So after landing autopilot off, pitch limiter off, I think it's over here. Transponder not used, searchlight will not used, dust protectors, I haven't turned those on. And Doppler, that's on this side, so that one and that one, if I'm not mistaken. And the radar thermometer, that's on the pilot side. Let's see, after landing checklist complete, shutdown, the brakes, they are set. Inverters. Go back to the flight engineer seats. So the 150 volt to manual, and the 36 volt off. Or this one to manual and this one off. And all the non-essential switches off. Okay, so let's work our way from left to right again. Turn everything off that we don't need. The fan, avionics. This will leave as is. The radios and the avionics on this side. The lights will leave on for now with the engines running. Turn that one off. We didn't turn on the backlighting on that side, so that's fine. Back to the checklists, and the rectifier is all off. That's over here. The generator's off. throttled idle. It's this one. A cooldown of 1 or 2 minutes. Well, you won't wait that long. And we close the stopcocks. These red handles here. Let's move over to the flight engineer sides. And then when the rotor brake, when the rotor RPM is below 20%, that's over here, we can engage the rotor brake. So going up to 20% here. And we can engage the rotor brake. Open up the window. Turn off the lights. Then what's next? Fuel fire shutter valves. Turn those off. The fuel pumps can come off. Fire extinguishing system can come off. And then the 115 volt inverter can come off. And then the batteries. DC sector switch, I left it to off. 36 volt instrument transformer, that's over here. It can come off. All the circuit breakers. That's fun because you have to do it one by one. Bear with me. And then these two jocks, assume they are installed, brake, we'll leave those on. Any auto switches, turn those off, and that's the engine shutdown checklist completed. And that's our training for today completed. So yeah, I do this quite regularly now, especially during the beginning phase of my learning journey. It's quite useful, and I actually quite like using the Normandy map. So yeah, it's still lots of things to learn: the radio system, or the weapon system, that kind of thing, navigation, the Doppler system. It's all very interesting, and once I've mastered that, we'll start doing some campaigns. So yeah, to be continued.